Let me go to Phil. Phil's calling us from North Carolina. Hey, Phil.
Hey, man, thank you for taking the call and appreciate your ministry.
Thank you.
The state of North Carolina has got a really good rating now because of the conservative leadership we've got. And
Yes.
they're going to issue some bonds next week. Is that a different category than what you're talking about on these short-term bonds now?
Yes. I'll tell you why it's a different category. So that would be an individual bond that you so if you were able to get some of that, which is probably going to be really hard, by the way, Phil. But if you were able to get some of those bonds, you would buy, let's just say you would put, $1,000 and you would buy a bond, some of this bond for $1,000.
Right.
That's an individual bond. And here's what happens with that. An individual bond says that you're going to get, I'm making these numbers up, you're going to get 1.5%. And the bond's going to mature in 5 years. And for 5 years, you're going to get 1.5% every year. Now, in the meantime, while you own that bond, so you bought this bond, you own it for 5 years, or you have it thinking you're going to own it for 5 years. But in the meantime, while you own it and you're getting your 1.5%, the bond goes from $1,000 to $500, goes from $500 to $800, goes back down to $500, goes up to $1,000, so on and so forth. It's volatile. It's moving. Okay, it's moving. And so the value is going to change, and you may look at it like you're losing money, right? Because I put 1,000 in, now I have 900. What's up with that? But here's the thing. The individual bonds are that it's going to mature on such and such a date 5 years from now. So if it's going to mature on April 11th, 5 years from now, and on April 10th, that $1,000 is worth $300, which that would never happen. That's a big swing. But that's worth $300. You don't care. Who cares? Because tomorrow, the next day, it's going to give you your $1,000 back on maturity. You're going to get your principal back. So the way you lose money on individual bonds like that is if you do something like sell it when it goes down in value. So having said all that is you don't buy a bond. I used to be a bond trader when I was working on Wall Street. It was one of the first jobs I ever had. But when the way you buy a bond like that, no one listening to me should buy a bond like that unless they're doing it for the income. Don't do it because you want to make money on the $1,000 that you bought. You're going to make money because you're getting a little interest every month or quarter or whatever you're getting it. But don't do it to grow money. Don't do it because you want the $1,000 bond to grow to $1,500. It's not going to happen. You shouldn't buy it for that reason. You should buy it knowing that you're going to hold it to maturity. So having said that, you don't buy a 10 or 15-year bond. You try to keep it as short as you can, unless that 10 or 15-year is, paying you 5.5% or something. You wouldn't do that. So the goal with buying one of those brand new North Carolina bonds is that what's the duration? Okay, it's an 8-year bond. How much is it paying? Paying 2.5% or whatever, something that you feel pretty good about. And you buy it with the idea that I'm never going to look at it again. I don't care what the value is. I'm not going to look at it until I'm going to get my money back in 8 years or 5 years or whatever it is. So it's a very different scenario with buying individual bonds. And way back in April, when I sent out my alert to the partners and said, get out of bond mutual funds, I got a lot of questions about, if you're a partner, you'll remember this. I got a lot of questions of people saying, well, wait a minute, I got this muni bond and I got this individual bond here. Do I get out of those? And I had to put out another alert clarifying, because I realized I didn't clarify it, to say, no. I'm not talking, if you have individual bonds, keep them. Unless they've got like a 30-year duration or something, keep them. And that's not what I'm talking about. So I'm okay with those kinds of bonds. I know they're having another bond issue, but I would say they're going to be very hard to get.
Okay. All right. So if you hold them to maturity, you're going to preserve your capital.
That's right. So the promise of the state is that, they're not going to make any promises about the value of that bond during the time that you own it, but the day it matures, you're going to get your principal back. And when it's all said and done, you're going to get your principal back, and you will have earned the exact amount that they said you were going to earn when you bought it. If it says you're going to earn a 1.5%, you will have gotten 1.5% every year for as long as you've owned it when it's all over.
Okay. All right, that clarifies it. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Phil. Great question. I appreciate it. And let me just clarify something else on that, folks, not to get too deep in the weeds here and confuse you, but that same scenario on that bond, when that bond goes down in value, you're going to get a higher rate of return when it's down in value. And you're going to think, wow, this is really good because now I'm getting 1.75% instead of 1.5%. No. I mean, you are, but you're not making any more money because the bond's down in value. Okay, it's lower. And they made you a promise to give you 1.5 on $1,000, but your bond's only worth $800. They've got to give you a little bit more money so that it's equivalent to 1.5 on $1,000. So when it's all said and done through all these ups and downs, you won't have received a nickel more than what they originally promised. You may have months or quarters that you feel like you got a little bit more, but when it all said and done at the end, when it'll come out in the wash, you will have gotten just what you said. It's a little confusing. The whole bond thing is very confusing, but maybe I clarified it a little bit.